I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes.
First of all, I would like to thank our respected chair for today's session, Dr. Ranjit Krishnan Kea, who has very eloquently has talked about a little bit of introduction on me. Now, without a further delay, I'd like to start with my presentation. To make the presentation to be very precise and pinpointed, I would like to make a PowerPoint presentation as well to attract the research scholars and the students who are joining us in this seminar. So I would like to share the screen now. If my screen is visible, please inform me. Is it visible? Is my screen visible? Can anyone just intimate me about it?
Yes, sir, but the screen size is too small, so we are finding it difficult to read the slides.
Okay. How about now?
No, it's okay, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you once again, respected chair. I am Dr. Chuchengfa Gogoi from North Lakhimpur College Autonomous. And today's topic that I want to discuss is about titled as Nation, Autonomy and Self-Determination, Sixth Schedule in Northeast India. And this particular topic interests me for the reason being a part of this northeastern region. I have been looking at very keenly and observing how this constitutional provision, especially the sixth schedule, has an interconnection with the development of the sense of nationhood and the sense of self-determination and a demand for extended autonomy among the tribals and living in both hills and plains. So that's why I have chosen this topic. So before I start with my presentation, I have a couple of questions that strikes me while preparing this seminar paper, such as, is there one nation or many in Northeast India? Whether the idea of nation, it is actually multifaceted. What was the philosophy of sixth schedule? Why it was not enough for the tribes of undivided Assam? Thus, sixth schedule has any connection with the raising claim for nationhood among the indigenous tribes of Northeast India. Thus, nation building is an extension of autonomy and self-determination campaign in Northeast. Why the movement for autonomy and self-determination still triggering the Northeast India? What are the politics over sixth schedule in Northeast India? And what are the problems of sixth schedule in Northeast India? So these are certain questions that disturbs me a lot while preparing this particular presentation, and I would like to answer these questions through my presentation. Now, before I talk about how this sixth schedule has an impact on this whole discourse of nation building in Northeast India, I just want to make it clear in terms of Northeast India. Now, when we are talking about the idea of nation generally, we understand it as a political phenomenon combining with similar kind of people having similarity in terms of traits, in terms of origin, culture, race, religion, languages, so on and so forth. But when we talk about the same plethora of idea of nation in terms of India, I have mainly interested on two important projections about the Indian nation. The first one was made by the famous political scientist from India, Partha Chatterjee, who wrote an extensive work titled as The Nation and Its Fragments. And the another one is Mr. Sajal Nag, who had talked about the multiplicity of nation. In both of these two ideas, these social scientists, political scientists, they were trying to understand that India as a nation, it is not uniform. India as a nation, it cannot be considered to be one that as it has been prescribed by the constitution. Rather, we have many contestations, many fragments regarding the nation. Now, why do they have projected this idea of nation as a fragmented concept, or why do they have see a multiplicity of nation in India? It is simply because of the predominance of different, I called it as primordial sentiments such as affiliation of a particular racial community, affiliation to a specific caste, affiliation to a specific language, affiliation towards a specific ethnicity, so on and so forth. So therefore it is very difficult for us to consider or to understand the whole nuance of the Indian nation building projection from one perspective. Now, by taking this theoretical understanding of what and how do we see the idea of nation in India, we can talk about the idea of nation in Northeast India. Now, when we're talking about nation in Northeast India, it is mainly can be considered as ethnically plural, and it is something which is culturally very, very diverse. Having said that, if I have to give reference to the recent, the last census that was done in the year 2011, because in 2021, because of the COVID situation, we were not able to conduct the census. So as per the 2001 census, it was said that in India, we have 200 tribes and sub-tribes that has live in different parts of Northeast. And apart from these 200 tribes, there are some other non-tribals who also have got some affiliation towards ethnic lifestyles. Now, this very ethnically diverse, plural set of society that we have, it actually makes us to understand that the concept of nationhood, the sense of belonging to one identity, is not possible. Now, for example, if you are talking about state like Assam, even in the state of Assam, we see that the biggest valleys, that is Brahmaputra and the Borak Valley, even in these two valleys, we see that there are lots of diverse communities living with their own ancestral cultures, ancestral traits, religion, customs, so on and so forth. So therefore, this idea of nation in Northeast India is very, very contested. Now, when we are talking about the questions of contestations and nation building, probably we have to talk about two perspectives. One is probably the colonial perspective, and the second one is obviously the post-colonial perspective. Now, while talking about the colonial perspective, we could find out one specific, idea of nation that was developed by the British administrators. That is what we call as the nation from below. Now, this very philosophy of nation from below was advocated by the British administrators to, ease their administration and the burden of administration, because they knew that it is very difficult for them to reach out the tribals who are living in the remotest part of the forest, remotest parts of the hills, and they were run through their own traditional governance mechanism. So it was very difficult for them to reach out them. And that is why probably they have, comes up with this idea of nation from below, and they try to project these tribal people as something thought to be touched. So there was something like some philosophies, some administrative mechanisms were being developed by the British administrators to subside these tribal demographies from the mainstream administration of British. Now, as a result, there has been some kind of ethnic enclavization was been created. So these strict ethnic enclaves based on the ethnic identities, people who are living in the hills and the plains, this strict demarcation has created a sense of strong ethnic enclave. And this strict ethnic enclave has later created a sense of nationhood among these tribals. Then come the post-colonial period. So in the post-colonial period, we saw that the nation building in Northeast India specifically, it was mostly rooms around the issue of demand for homeland. Now, when we are talking about nation, we are also talking about a specific territory where the people can entertain their ancestral ideas, their ancestral traits, their ancestral heritage. So therefore, we saw that after the independence of India, many tribal people living in different hills, for example, the Naga Hill, the Lusai Hills, the Jointia Hills, they have started demanding for a separate landscape for themselves. And this is a scenario of the nation building in post-colonial period. Now, the thing is, whether it is the colonial period or post-colonial period, this very concept of nation building has led to the growth of sentiments of self-determination. And this sense of self-determination has led to the sense of development of extensive autonomy to these tribals. Now, how do the Indian state has, responded towards these demands? This is the major question that we need to understand. And this is how probably we have to talk about the road to 6 schedule. Now, it is very interesting to notice that, as we have seen that during the colonial period itself, many of the tribal people who have left, who have made to be a part of an ethnic enclave, they have started developing a sense of nationhood among themselves, and that was been responded by the government of the interim government of India, the British India, especially the Constituent Assembly. But the process was not easy. As you know that before the coming of the British administrators to the Northeast India, the most of the northeastern part were not even, related or linked with the mainstream British administration. So it was through a process of annexation. The tribal areas in the plains and hills, they were submerged, or rather they were being carried out into the British administration. For example, we can talk about the Assam plains, which was annexed in the year 1826, Kasar Plains, which was annexed in the year 1830, Khasi Hills in the year 1833. So Jaintia Plains, Karbi Anglong, Mikir Hills, North Kacha Hills, Daga Hills, Garo Hills, Meju Hills, respectively, they were annexed into the British administration slowly and steadily. Now, once these hill areas and the plains, which are dominated mostly by the tribals, were being annexed to the British administrations, we saw that the British comes up with lots of administrative provisions to demarcate or create a strict line of difference between the tribals who are living in the hills and the people who are living in the plains. Such as we can talk about the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act of 1873, which introduced a very interesting kind of a system that is called as the inner line system. Then the Civil District Act of 1874 that introduced the creation of a civil district in the hill districts of the British India. Then the Assam Frontier Tract Regulation Act of 1880 that has segregated the frontiers in the northeastern part of the India. The Government of India Act of 1919 that has created some backward areas inside the northeast. Then the Government of India Act of 1935 that had created some excluded and partially excluded areas inside the northeastern regions. Now, these kind of administrative mechanisms, strategies that has actually made the people of Northeast to live in a very isolative life, to not to be a part of the mainstream culture, mainstream history, mainstream nation. So that's why they develop a sense of difference. So there's a tendency of exclusive identity among the tribal people have already started during the colonial period. So for example, here we can talk about the growth of Naga nationalism, which was a product of this British exclusive policy through a particular organization. So not only the Mijus, the other plain tribal people also, they have started developing a sense of difference, a sense of exclusive identity. So as a result, when the Constituent Assembly was being created, so there was a constant pressure generated by the civil society groups among these tribal people to get a separate recognition or separate space for their own identity. So as a result, the Constituent Assembly has created a subcommittee under the leadership of Gopinath Bordoloi, and that is what we call as the Gopinath Bordoloi Committee, and many people also call it as the Subcommittee on Northeast Frontier, Tribal and Excluded Areas. So this particular committee, it was created in the year 1947, 27th of February, and Gopinath Bordoloi was assisted by other four members such as J.J.M. Nicholas Roy, Sri Rupnath Brahma, A.V. Thakkar, and Sri Mayang Noksha. And all these people, along with Gopinath Bordoloi, they have made lots of deliberation in the Constituent Assembly. They have participated in lots of debates. And that, as a result, we have see the sixth schedule of Indian Constitution that comprises of Article 244.2 and 275.1. Now, this is how we have to understand that the trajectory of the recognition of tribal identity of the Northeastern people, it was not only the Constitution that has provided a separate space. Rather, it was actually the British administrator who have provided a space, a mechanism for developing a sense of difference among the people of tribal people, and as a result, the sixth schedule has been created. Now, when the sixth schedule was created, as we all know, that this very idea of sixth schedule was a philosophy that was incorporated in the Indian Constitution to provide a special attention to the four most important states of Northeast India, that is Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. And initially, these four states were taken into consideration into the sixth schedule by providing a specific line of autonomy to the tribal people who are living mostly in the hill areas. So as a result, as you can see, that by the sixth schedule, the main idea of the sixth schedule is to provide autonomy and autonomous council for the hill tribals. So there has been lots of initiatives taken through the sixth schedule for creation of regional councils, autonomous district councils. And as a result, in the part one, we could see that in Assam, there are 3 autonomous councils that have been created under the sixth schedule. That is the North Kacha Hill District, the Karbi Anglong District, the Bodoland Territorial Areas District. And in the part 2, it is the Khasi Hill District, Jaintia Hill District, the Garo Hill District. And the part 2A, it is about the Tripura Tribal Area Districts. Now, this is how the sixth schedule was been created, and this is how a specific sense of autonomy, a specific sense of self-determination power has been given to the tribal areas of the Northeast. Now, when we're talking about sixth schedule, there is one important point that we cannot miss out, is regarding the politics of sixth schedule, especially in the post-colonial period. Now, here I'm interested more about classifying this whole discourse of politics of sixth schedule mostly into two lines. The first one is the autonomy and self-rule, that was the experiences from the hills. And the second one is the sixth schedule and the extended autonomy, that was the experiences from the plains. Now, you must be wondering why I'm classifying this, the experiences, the politics of sixth schedule in post-colonial period into two types. It is mainly because initially the whole philosophy of sixth schedule was created to provide extensive autonomy to the tribals living in the hill districts. But later, slowly and steadily, it was also targeted because of the constant pressure, constant demand made by one of the major tribal group of the plains to get an extensive autonomy under the sixth schedule. So when it was being initiated, it was seen that many of the tribal people who are living in the hills, they have got this autonomy for a district council, regional councils, but they were not happy the way their autonomy has been given. For example, there's a very important organization I must mention, that is called All Party Hill Leaders Conference, APHLC, which played a very, very important role in providing a umbrella organization, a platform for the hill tribals to demand for a separate state. So although the sixth schedule has given a separate autonomy, separate district councils, regional councils to the tribals, but they were not happy with the arrangement. So as a result, they have demanded for a separate state. And in the year 1970s to 75, we could see that the Northeast India has got bifurcated into different parts of states. And this is how the Naga Hill district became Nagaland, the Mizo Hill district became Mizoram, then this Khasi Jointia Hills became the Meghalaya. So this is how all the state that was carved out of this undivided Assam in the later period was the extension of the autonomy that was given through the sixth schedule. So there is a question like why the sixth schedule is not been able to provide satisfaction to the demands of the tribals living in the hill areas. And this same situation was taken as a reference point for the many of the other tribal people who are also living in the plains. Now, in the plains, specifically, we have to talk about one specific community that is called the Boros. And these Boros have extensively demanding for a separate state within the Assam, specifically from the colonial period itself. So during the colonial period, there was an organization called Tribal League. Then it has become Tribal Sangh. They have played a very important role in demanding for a separate tribal area, for the plain tribal people living in the Brahmaputra Valley. And that has also, carried out during the post-colonial period. And there was a large, massive protest for identity movement, recognition of identity has been seen among the Boros. As a result, in 2003, there has been an amendment made in the sixth schedule of Indian Constitution by incorporating a separate extended autonomy to the plain tribals as well. So this trajectory has to be understood. Now, in the last part of my presentation, I am more interested to talk about what are the paradoxes of sixth schedule, like why the sixth schedule is not enough, and what kind of politics the sixth schedule has created in a later period of the post-colonialism. Now, the first point of reference that I would like to talk about is the politics of reference point. Now, what do I mean by politics of reference point? As I said that because of the connection between the nation and the sixth schedule and extended autonomy given to the hill tribals, the tribal people were not satisfied with the kind of arrangement that has been given by the sixth schedule, and they have demanded for a separate state. That triggered the other tribal people who are living in the plains of Assam to demand for other extended autonomy. For example, here we can talk about people like the Rabhas, the Tiwas, the Missings, the Deuris, the Sonwal Kasaris, the Thengal Kasaris. All of them have started demanding for a separate autonomy inside the Assam. So the government, now they understand that it is very difficult for them to provide autonomy under sixth schedule. So therefore, the state government comes up with a state autonomy or a special autonomy to these communities. And it was given in the year 1995. So from 1995, these communities have also got autonomous councils, but these autonomous councils are not similar to it as it has been given in terms of sixth schedule autonomy. So that is one of the major striking point that we need to talk about the paradoxes of sixth schedule. The second paradox that I would like to highlight is about the competing claims. Now, after these tribals have got specific autonomy, there are some other communities who are maintaining a traditional lifestyle, who maintain a ethnic lifestyle, having their own languages, cultures, and traditions. They have also started demanding for scheduled tribe status. Here, probably we can talk about the six most important communities, that is the Ahoms, Kus Rajbongsis, T tribals, Moran, Motok, Sutia, who have also been demanded for inclusion of them as a scheduled tribe. inside the Indian constitution. So that had made the issues become more, more competitive. So there has been a competitive claim for identity, issues of recognition under the constitution. The third one is the emergence of tribal elitism and politics of exclusion of minority. Now, this has been a very serious thing that we must understand, that because of the sixth schedule, especially, we saw that there has been a steady growth of a tribal elite among the tribes. Here, probably we can talk about the case studies of Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council and North Kasar Hills Autonomous Council, because in these two hill areas, we could see that the tribal people, they have brought a sense of new elites based on their ethnic affiliations. And the minority people who have also given the opportunity to be represented in the autonomous councils, they were not getting this equal footing with the majority tribals. So as a result, the minority people, they feel excluded. So although they have got political representation to the autonomous council, but that was not seems to be equally important to the majority ethnic groups of that particular specific tribals. Then come the issue of ethnic conflicts. Now, it was very evident that after attaining special autonomy in most of the autonomous regions, because of this clash between majorities and minorities, there has been some sort of ethnic conflicts, ethnic chaos that has been seen. For example, in Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council since 2005 onwards, there has been lots of communal violence that happens between the majority Karbis versus the all other minority groups residing inside the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council. Not only that, from 1999 onwards, we can see lots of communal riots, violence in the Bodoland Autonomous Councils as well, among the majority Boros versus the non-Boros. So these issues also to be understood. Then we have to talk about the conflict of interest. Now, this is a very interesting point, because although these tribal people who have got autonomy under the sixth schedule, there has been always a question of legitimacy. Question of legitimacy among the state government and the autonomous councils. Because, for example, here we can talk about the recent episode of, conflict of interest that was happening between the state government of Meghalaya and the autonomous council, the 4 autonomous councils of Meghalaya district, because most of the autonomous councils which has got special attention under the autonomy of sixth schedule, they got proliferated almost all the parts of the state of Meghalaya. So the state government many a time it finds it very difficult to execute some of the important rules, because it's going to violate the existing governance mechanism of the autonomy extended by the sixth schedule. So these are some of the major points and paradoxes that I would like to highlight. Then probably we can also talk about the low participation of people and the conflict of legitimacy. Now, at the last part of my presentation, I would like to conclude by saying that although the government of India, especially, they have amended the provisions of sixth schedule of Indian Constitution, but it is not merely enough to address the claims of nationhood among the tribal people living in both hills and plain areas. And there must be some sort of amicable position has to be given by the government, and to try to find out some mechanism by which we can also encourage the traditional governance mechanism as well as the democratic governance. And there has to be a link between these two types of governance mechanism must be maintained, so that these problems of nationhood, autonomy, and self-determination to be addressed. So with this note, I would like to wind up my presentation. If you have any questions and clarification, I would love to answer.
Thank you, Gogoi said. That was really